talking, I will be starting with what exactly the qualitative aspects of the impact evaluation, because you are all attending several sessions on quantitative methods of impact assessment. And here I will be introducing some of the qualitative techniques of the impact assessment in first few slides. Then I will directly go into the content analysis and more focused on the thematic analysis. Okay, so when you talk about this qualitative impact assessment, it is basically an evaluation. It is not exactly the research. So the primary questions will come in our mind that what exactly is the qualitative. I will skip a couple of slides, then I will be coming back. So some of the qualitative impacts of our technology interventions program, primarily impact assessment, as you are aware of it, it is like a cause-effect relationship. So something you are making a field intervention, and then after a certain period of time, maybe 2 years, 5 years, 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years, you are actually measuring the outputs, outcome, and impact. So this focus here, more of a kind of impact, means what happened with the extra income generated, or what happened with the extra money generated or extra capitals created, and how the capital was used. We are focusing on something which is a long term, the qualitative impact. In most cases, if you take any literature, we are focusing more of an economic aspects of the impact. In a very simple term, I will say that in any kind of field intervention involving a new variety, we have a horizontal impact and vertical impact. Vertical impact is increase in the productivity, horizontal impact in the increase in the area. So these are the very simple things in any program, anybody who is giving you fund, or any research manager or policymaker. They are more interested in the immediate impacts, and which will be converted into a economic term in a large, like how much money is generated at the national level because of the particular variety. But there what we miss is something. There are some qualitative impacts, qualitative aspects of the impact, which is actually more of a sustainable kind of thing. I mean to say that you get more money. A farmer is getting more money by adopting the technology, but if he wants to continue to get the more money, he has to have some kind of a skill, something which is more important, skill and managerial ability and decision making thing, which will sustain, which will help him to sustain the impact of the variety over a period of long term. So there are other cases like good governance. It is also one of the qualitative impacts which is coming in a large scale national level intervention programs, where we are talking about the local self governance. And we are also focusing on self-help group based intervention there. They are one of the aspects which we make in a, it is actually good governance is an indicator of the sustainable impact of something which is created. Means you create a FPO, and the FPO impact you have to study only after 5 years or 10 years. Because if the FPO has to sustain the success which has got this year, they have to use a good governance is one of the aspects which will help them to sustain the benefits of the intervention over a period of long time. Second one is social capital. You have to create a kind of social capital in the sense that the society is something you have to give it to the society, and the society should get us something like an assertive way, something like a positive impact on the society. And the empowerment, which is a widely used impact indicator in many programs, and the empowerment is the impact, and there are several indicators: social empowerment, economic empowerment, and the decision-making ability of, especially we talk about the women and the tribal people and SCSP. So, and again, we are also coming to the social inclusion. This is also another indicator where sociological studies are more focusing on the social capital and social inclusion. And a very simple way of looking at the impact is the training effectiveness, which is not exactly the impact indicator, but it is a outcome indicator, something like an outcome. Because training effectiveness, if you use Kilpatrick model, we will be looking at the impact level. Otherwise, most of the training effectiveness, we are stopping at the output level. We don't even go to the outcome level there. So now I am coming back to my first slide. So there is a question like we talk about whether you use for a qualitative approach or quantitative approach. There is a method framework proposed by Hetzel 1999, which is helping us to understand the choice of the method, because which method we want to use it for a kind of impact evaluation. So there are two things which we have to consider. One is the approach. Approach is the qualitative and the quantitative. They are not the research design. Qualitative and the quantitative are the research approaches which we how we look at the problem. So we are aware that the qualitative approaches are actually there are. I remember. I am sure that you know the goals of scientific research, like a description, explanation, exploration, prediction, and application. These are the five major goals of the research, our social scientific research. If you go for a quantitative line, you can go for description, as well as you will be able to give explanation and explanation to some extent in the way of testing the hypothesis, and you can go for the prediction. But in qualitative studies, what you will be doing is you will be doing the probing. Probing is exploration as well as explanation. So the research goal number 2 and 3, including the goal number 1, which is satisfied by the qualitative research, and the research goal number 4 and 5 are satisfied by the quantitative research. So when you want to achieve something at the higher level, but the problem is in quantitative research, when you cannot directly go into a kind of explanation and prediction, because first of all, you have to describe the things. You have to understand. Suppose if you are saying like we talk about the COVID. So how the COVID has affected the agriculture, because there are a lot of blog papers and everything is written. Now we have sufficient information on how the COVID is affecting the farmer. But you think about the last year, March, we have no idea, because COVID is not something which is happening every year. So initial stages, to test any kind of hypothesis, you have to create hypothesis. So that means that you have to go for a description and exploration. There you have to go for a qualitative studies. Because when there is a phenomenon, when you have a limited amount of information available at the beginning level, so you can go for a qualitative study. At the same time, you can also continue to do the quantitative studies, because based on the qualitative study, you might have generated some hypothesis. You have to test the hypothesis. That testing hypothesis is basically like understanding the relationships. It is a basic kind of explanation. Finally, you go for a prediction by understanding the whole structure using the regression methods. Okay, now you can look at the diagram. There are two aspects. One is approach, another one is a context. So qualitative methods are more of a focus on a context, like a location specific. We call it as a location specific. That is a disadvantage in qualitative methods, because we cannot draw any kind of generalization when it is a context based. It is context based, which COVID based, in the region based, something like even one state focusing on only one group of farmers. So there are more of a contextual kind of research, and there are less contextual and more contextual. You can look at this. The left side is more of a qualitative, and the right side is more of a quantitative. So suppose where you want to stand, like what kind of your research objective, what is your research goal. Based on research goal, you have to select the methods. Like here, if you want to go for a more of an explanation, more of a description and exploration, you can go for a participator analysis, ethnographic investigations, rapid assessments, which are more of a contextual and less of a quantitative there. And then if you are coming to the another next level, where longitudinal village or urban surveys, which is of more of a quantitative but more of a contextual. So in the top two, more of a contextual as well as more of a quantitative. But if you want to make a more kind of generalization, like you cannot focus more on contextual information. You want to be less contextual unless and until you get a sufficient number of samples. So you come down there. So you will be seeing like a qualitative module of the questionnaire survey, which is having a open-ended questions or semi-structured questionnaires. Their questions, which is more of a qualitative, which is less contextual, and at the same time, which is of a more of a, what we say, if you come to the middle, it is more of a, we can quantify it. Like you can say that from focus group discussions and from your open-ended interviews, you can generate the data, textual data and verbal data, which can be converted into a textual data, and then we can use it using the NVO software. We can go for a thematic analysis. So that is where we stand. Means we are trying to get the data which is more of a qualitative, and we are trying to convert this qualitative data into a quantitative form, so that you can generate some kind of hypothesis, or you can make some interpretation about the underlying structure in the data, underlying patterns in the data. So that's where we go for thematic analysis. And less contextual and more of a quantitative is epidemiological surveys and household and health surveys, sample surveys, which we go for NSSO surveys. Most of them are, unless and until they integrate the qualitative thing, they are more of a quantitative thing. Now we are in a stage where we cannot be exclusively quantitative or qualitative. We are mixing all of them together. We are using the qualitative data for the initial data collection and to generate the hypothesis, or in scale development, to identify the items, to identify the dimensions and the items in the scale. You are using a qualitative methods. From their qualitative methods, you are identifying the scale items, as well as you are also identifying the hypothesis to be tested. Then using your quantitative method, you are doing the hypothesis testing. So you are trying to integrate those things, but please remember, this cannot be used as a mixed methods design. Mixed methods design is not combining, means using both the qualitative and quantitative methods. Mixed method designs mean there are specific research designs where you have to use step-by-step approach there. So we normally call it a mixed methods design. The mixed methods design is something which is more specific. We cannot use something qualitative or somewhere, and there what you are doing is you are actually sequencing it. You are using qualitative methods first, then quantitative methods first. You are putting a sequence. I will be explaining you in the coming slide what exactly you are doing it. So this is the one which I was talking about. When you combine the methods in impact evaluation, you are doing three things. Integrating methodologies for better measurement. Means you are using qualitative methodology at the beginning, quantitative methodology at the later stages, so that you can improve the way you are measuring the constructs and concepts. Initially, you are using the qualitative methodology for generating the constructs when there is a little information available. So those constructs are defined quantitatively in the later stages, and where based on that the relationship between the constructs and how the constructs are interacting with each other to produce an impact, to produce an effect, you are going for a quantitative methodology. So you are integrating quantitative and qualitative methodologies for better measurement of the constructs, what you are doing. So several constructs I told. Good governance is one construct, empowerment is another construct, social capital is another construct, food security, even food security is also kind of, unless and until you quantify it, because there are many quantifiable definitions are there in food insecurity, but there are also papers which are measuring the food insecurity in terms of the perception of the people. And I think most of you are aware about the wealth ranking. Wealth ranking is something which is a deviant from others, because wealth ranking, you are actually defining wealth in time based on the perception of the people, not based on the annual income, per day income, no. So that means that you are trying to quantify the constructs in the respondent's perspective, in the beneficiary's perspective. There are times, there are many, I will explain, there are three types of constructs are there: indigenous constructs, analyst-driven constructs, that I will be telling in the later stages, different kind of constructs there. So second one is sequencing information, means you are collecting the data. Okay, then collecting the data, you are collecting the data, for example, you are collecting the data through the qualitative focus group discussions. From there, you are identifying the major themes, and you are also identifying the major dimensions which are part of, for example, I will say that good governance. Good governance is a general construct. So people will have a different definitions of the good governance. If you take the Britannica dictionary, some definition will be there. But if you go to, if you talk about any IAS officer or any government side, they have a defined methodology for the good governance. But the same good governance will have a different meaning for the people who are actually get affected by the governance. So they will say that for them, corruption may be the one aspect. For the government, creating the infrastructure may be one of the indicator of the good governance. But for the people, corruption-free and easy accessibility to the government officers and getting the things done at the easiest, that may be the reasons for the good governance. So there are different ways there. But you have to collect the information, and that information has to be sequenced in somebody's perspective, whether it is a user perspective or from the government perspective. Based on the sequencing, you are actually, what you are going to do in the sequencing phase is you are examining something. You are collecting the data from focus group discussions, and you are generating one questionnaire also based on the whatever questions asked in focus group discussion. You are triangulating the data from both these stages. You are examining, and you are also explaining some phenomenon, some result has come in your qualitative study. For example, the reasons for reduction, reasons for lowering of the groundwater table. We go for a causal diagram when you go for a in PRA. So the causal diagram can be used as for developing a questionnaire. That questionnaire can be administered to the key informants or anybody, so that whatever the causal diagram, the cause and effect you got it there, you can confirm it through the quantitative methods. So that is for explaining whatever comes the triangulation as well as the explaining, and confirming it is also same triangulation, and refuting. You can use the qualitative method, some result has come. You are using quantitative method because you are not agreeing to the result of the qualitative research, and you are refuting the finding. And again, enriching. Normally 95% time we are putting both methods together only to enrich. You collect the data using the questionnaire, and you also ask some open-ended questions. Open-ended questions will be the explanation for whatever you got in your questionnaire. So for example, in adoption, we talk about the fully adopted, partially adopted, non-adopted. Okay, you are asking simply why, what is your current level of adoption? Whether you are asking it or you are observing it, or you are putting somebody's in the partial adoption. Then you put the open there, why you are making partial adoption. So that means that what the information you got it through quantitative method, you are adding the qualitative things there to enrich the finding there. So the third one is merging findings for the better action, for improved analysis and improved policy influence. It is normally in thematic analysis, you will be merging it. One example of merging the analysis is your meta-analysis. Meta-analysis and systematic review, research synthesis, where in meta-analysis, we will be getting the effect sizes. Effect sizes means the strength of relationship between some hypothesis there. Using the systematic review, when you are combining it along with this, you can say that why such things are happening there. So that is one way of doing the secondary kind of data analysis, like from the published sources, you are not actually going into it. But at the same time, you can also use it for our own primary data collection. So these are the three ways you can integrate this qualitative and quantitative methods. One is you are integrating the methodology. You are using the quantitative and qualitative methods for sequencing the information for the better analysis. Third one is you are merging the findings, whatever you collected from quantitative and qualitative research, for the better explanation, improved analysis, better explanation, better insight, and which will be helping you in making or reforming or creating the policy. So now some examples of using the thematic analysis. Now I am directly coming to thematic analysis. There is a paper published on evaluating the impact of the training program, which is not exactly related to agriculture. So the title is the thematic analysis investigating the impact of positive behavior support training on the lives of the service providers. Service providers are the people who are associated with the physiotherapy kind of thing. They are using some behavioral, because this is a kind of a behavioral intervention, a behavioral analysis training there. Positive behavior support training means it's a kind of psychological training which is given to the people who are having some kind of unpredictable behavior. So they are who are taking care of the people with unpredictable behavior. So they conducted this training program. So after the training program, they have used the thematic analysis to understand the impact of this training program. This is one paper. The other one is which is basically a thematic analysis from the published sources. So what they have done is how the artificial intelligence improves the agricultural productivity and sustainability. What are all the papers and the news features published in the artificial intelligence? They have collected it and did the thematic analysis. Please remember, this is also an impact study, but not an impact study where you make a behavioral intervention. This is from the compilation of the studies from the previous published work from which is focusing exclusively on the impact evaluation. So there are a few more papers which used thematic analysis for the impact evaluation. You can also try. But one way of the primary application of thematic analysis in impact assessment is, one is immediate thing is training effectiveness. You can go use it for training effectiveness, how the training was conducted in the extension perspective, and you can also use the thematic analysis to quantify the constructs which are not quantifiable through the economic methods. Like you talk about the good governance, and livelihood is one thing which cannot be directly quantified, though we have some economic indicators for livelihood assessment, but the livelihood is something which you will be having. You have to take the perspective of the empowerment, different dimensions of the empowerment. You can use this thematic analysis, and you can ask some open-ended questions to them, and you can record it, and from the recording same questions you can ask to different people. Normally thematic analysis in qualitative analysis we need 30 samples minimum of 30 samples. It all depends upon the redundancy and when you are saturation point. Saturation point is something you are asking the same questions to about 10 or 15 people. At some point of time, maybe after fifth or sixth person, you will identify that everybody starts giving the same answer. So that is actually the saturation point. Based on the redundancy and the saturation point, we decide the sample size for the qualitative studies. Normally it is about 30, and sometimes it comes about within 20. It all depends upon how skillfully you are framing the questions, and what context you are asking the questions, the way people understand the questions you are questioning, and you are trying to elicit the true information from them. Because what I feel is, in many of my programs I used to say that the biggest thing is not developing the questionnaire. It is about how you are going to collect the data. That is a core point of any scientific research. If you make a problem, if you make a mistake while collecting the data, because like in other cases, developing a questionnaire and everything, there were several scientific methods, like a judges rating. You can go for a judges rating. You can develop a very good scale using some scientific structured method. But everything you are doing it when you are asking the question, when you are administering the question. Suppose you are giving a question at a time people are drinking tea, but they will be focusing on tea, not on your questions. And when people are sitting and chit-chatting, when you are going there and collecting the data, then the influence of the second person, the answers of the first person will influence the second. So all these things you have to take care of when you are collecting the data. If you are collecting the perfect data, especially why I am saying here is, in thematic analysis, the data collection, especially when you are go for a primary data, you have to be very, very careful, because you are asking open-ended questions. There will be a lot of distraction. You have to bring all these things together, all these people into the focus. Okay. So thematic analysis is basically a qualitative method for identifying, analyzing, reporting patterns within the data, and it uses minimally organizes and describe the data set in detail. It is simply you are asking the same questions to four or five people, and the answers all you are getting it. All the answers you are reading by yourself, and when you are reading second or third answer, there will be some uniform patterns will be coming. There may be some of the words which will be coming uniformly. That is called a repetition method. You take it and you combine everything. So then you identify some of the themes based on the questions asked there. So it is basically a way of integrating the similar things together. That may be the words or that may be the meanings, everything, so that you will be identifying the hidden pattern in your data. And then based on the hidden pattern, you will identify the major reason for that person has gone for a particular behavior there. So this is the crux of the thematic analysis. So normally we use the content analysis and the thematic analysis interchangeably, but there are some differences. The purpose of content analysis is who says what to whom with what effect. You are simply reading, for example, if you are doing a content analysis of a newspaper for a period of maybe 5 years or maybe for a period of 3 years on one particular aspect, you are simply identifying who is telling what. So this particular feature, you will be identifying how many features are published during this period, that number. Second one is you will be saying how many features are, what are the geographical regions that particular feature has come. So Eastern India, Northeastern India, you will be making this many papers where they are published in the Eastern India, Northeastern. You are simply classifying the information into different categories there. But here, thematic analysis, it is not simply classifying the information based on the frequencies. It is based on the frequency of the words as well as frequency of the meanings and the frequency of the labels. I will explain you later. You have to understand what the people perceive instead of quantifying them into the numbers, some frequencies. Second one is, it is a mixed method approach, content analysis, but it is a thematic analysis is primarily qualitative. And the focus of the research design is minimal description and interpretation in thematic analysis, but the content analysis paper will be very long one. You will be actually classifying the frequencies, region wise, respondent wise, where the paper was published, so many frequencies will be there, but it will not be there in thematic analysis. Thematic analysis paper, you will find only the quoted statements. Most of the places you will find the quoted statements. The statements may be repeating 5 times or 6 times there. So consideration of the context of the data, you won't look into the context of somebody what said in content analysis, but thematic analysis you will be looking into the context. And the content type, content analysis may be the manifest and the latent contents. Manifest means something you can quantify directly by reading a paragraph. Latent means you have to read, you have to go for the semantic meanings of that particular sentence, and then you have to classify there. So you can go for anything in case of either this or that in content analysis, but in thematic analysis, it considers both the manifest as well as the latent contents, because some person will be reading a paragraph and they will be coding the paragraph, and then another person also will read the paragraph, he will also be coding it. We will be comparing whether the coding strategies of the both people are same. But in case of content analysis, whoever reads it, the frequencies will be the same. There will not be any changes, because this person consider both the manifest and the latent contents. And the nature of the theme is frequent occurrence, number of times, number of, for example, I will talk about the impact of COVID. Like you are collecting the different news items. So number of times the farmer said I was affected. So you will be grouping in this particular region, in eastern region, there are 25 times farmer said yield is affected. I got a marketing problem. I faced with the problem of labor. So how many times that particular problem was told? You are putting simply frequency of the occurrence there. But here in this case, you will also look at the context. They will be saying labor is not available. So you will be making that 5 times they said labor is not available. But in 3 times out of this 5 times, 3 times that fellow told, that might a fellow told, like I have the family labor, but outside labor is not available. Please remember, you will be simply looking at the labor, the word. But actually he might have told that I have the family labor. Apart from this, I need 2 more laborers, that they are not available. So if you look at the context, the same sentence will have a different meaning. So in thematic analysis, you will be looking at the context there. And other reliability of coders, you have to do it, you have to create a code book, audit trials will be there. And all the things, whatever you are doing in thematic analysis, you have to keep a record. So the mechanics of thematic analysis means what are the major steps, broad steps in doing thematic analysis is, you are actually discovering themes and sub-themes in thematic analysis. After identifying the themes, you are winnowing the themes, screening the themes and sending the unnecessary themes out, retaining only the themes which are required for you. There, based on the themes, you are building hierarchies, that is called mind map. Then before making the hierarchy, you have to, when you create a mind map will have the hierarchy as well as linking. So that means that you are also saying these are all the different kind of problems the farmers faced during the COVID times. So one problem is marketing problem, another is a non-availability of the labor is one problem, and the third problem is there is a less demand. The fourth problem is problem of retaining the employees even during the holiday. So you are putting this, which is the first problem, which is the this is the cause, this is the effect. So this is the ultimate effect. These problems are parallelly happening. Means linked to each other. If this problem is happening, this problem also will have. You are trying to make a link between different themes which you are identifying there. That is called your mind map, which is the final thing in concept map. In NVO software, concept will be created automatically. But I will suggest that thematic analysis, you please try to do it physically first, then you go into software, because software, many cases, it will not understand the context. Context you have to specify. Because I will be showing you, because when I get this NVO software, the license key again, I'll show you how the context component has to be taken when you are using the NVO software, because by default, NVO software will not consider the context. You have to specify the context. That's why I will suggest first you do physically with your means, so not one person, at least two persons has to do independently. Then you have to match the inter-rater liability, intercoder liability, you have to calculate it. Then only you can go for a next level in thematic analysis, mind map creation, everything there. Then once you do the physically, once you do manually, then you will understand the mechanics. So it is much easier. Like I think in your econometrics courses, you are all learning everything through Excel first. Then you are converting it, you are doing the same analysis using Stata or R. So I am saying thematic analysis, just like Excel, you have to do it manually. Then you can use the NVO software. Don't go directly jump into NVO software, because the findings which you are getting from the NVO software will mislead you unless and until you understand the mechanics of the thematic analysis. So when to use the thematic analysis? To understand a phenomena through stakeholders' views, opinions, knowledge and experience and values. Means, simply speaking, beneficiary perspective. So understanding the impact based on the beneficiary perspective, you go for a qualitative approach, and thematic analysis is one. Second one is to identify the constructs for exploratory and predictive research. So at the beginning stage of the impact assessment, you can go for a qualitative study. From there, you can identify the major dimensions of the impact. Like you might have already created the impact indicator at the beginning itself, but when you go for a qualitative study, and then you will be getting to know some more impacts which you may not have understood during the time of your baseline survey. Okay, so thus you can do it. Even sometime I will suggest you in baseline survey, you please put some of the open-ended questions, so that and you focus some of the qualitative impact, something which is more related to the psychological and sociological aspects. There the baseline survey itself, so that it will help you to understand, create some kind of impact indicator at the beginning itself, and so that you can verify it at the end. And again, creating the impact indicator for the qualitative approach, you have to primarily go for either indexing, or you have to go for a scale construction. Then only you will understand the constructs. You can identify the constructs. Later stages, you can go for a actual measurement. You can quantify them at the end there. So you can also use thematic analysis for research prioritization and analysis of policy, like agricultural policy of Kerala state, agricultural policy of Karnataka, agricultural policy of UP. You can use it. You can use thematic analysis to understand the common themes which are there in the agricultural policies of different states, and then you can also develop a paper. Because there are many papers published, because there are some of the premier institutions in India, they have a policy research department. Indian Institute of Science has a policy research department. Jawaharlal Nehru University, JNU has a science policy. They are offering PhD in science policy. Even Indian Institute of Science is also there. There are some of the papers which I saw, they use the thematic analysis for analyzing the policy documents there. So it is already, I told you a lot about the thematic analysis. There some of the terminologies are there. Theme is the hidden pattern in the data. It captures something more important about the data. And the themes link expressions found in the text, images, sounds. That we will be seeing some of the examples in the later stages. So the applications of thematic analysis, you can take the published literature on some particular topic over a period of time. You can do the thematic analysis, like the how the one example is how the lockdown has impacted the agriculture over a period of time. You can see lockdown 1, then lockdown 2, lockdown 3, and unlock 1, unlock 2, unlock 3. What exactly happened? You can take the published papers, published sources. From there, you can do thematic analysis. You can just see that what kind of effects, what kind of problems farmers are facing phase-wise in a kind of longitudinal kind of thing. Like in particular phase, this is the major problem. In that second phase, this is the major problem. Like that, you can develop a paper. That is newspaper stories you can do. And you can also use the verbal data generated during the interview, audio recordings, telephone interviews. There you can take it, and then once you take the verbal data, you have to translate it to text data for analysis. And you can also use the video recording of some of the farmers. Even people will go for the Twitter analysis, not Twitter and not Facebook, Twitter, and then again blog analysis. There are many papers which are published in blog analysis, Twitter analysis. So there are even they use some kind of social network analysis in between. There are a lot of areas where you can go for a thematic analysis. Okay, now the point is now we are coming to a analysis strategy. So how will you design? Because you know that you are collecting the data, you are first formulating the research problem. Based on your research problem, you are formulating the research questions. From research questions, you are converting them into your objectives. Based on objective, then you are stating your research purpose. Then from the objectives, you are identifying the design. Basically, our design is identified through, because what I mean to say, first thing in any research, you have to identify the research problem. From research problem, when you are coming to research question, then research question has to be converted into objective. When you are converting the research question into objective, you have to look at what are the research goal you are trying to do. You are going for a description, you are going for a explanation, you are going for an exploration, or you are going for a prediction there. So when you are there, you have to decide when you are converting the research questions into research objective. But there are some recent literature in marketing, they say that research questions will come from the research objective. There are still confusion among the scholars there. So then from there, you have to identify the designs, what kind of research design you are going to do. Based on the design, you identify the methods. So here, when you are going for a inductive or bottom-up approach, you are not having any kind of predetermined framework. When you are going for analytical framework, you are not going for any predetermined framework. You are simply asking some open-ended questions. From whatever answers given, you are trying to identify the themes and you are trying to prepare the mind map. There, you don't have any kind of theoretical understanding, theoretical structure to guide you. In case of a theoretical and deductive approach, analyst-driven, I am giving an example. We have done some research work where we want to understand the youth who are coming to the youth entrepreneurship, from the perspective of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Entrepreneurial ecosystem it's not a concept, it is a framework given by Eisenberg. So that says that success of any startup, success of any entrepreneurship depends upon these 6 factors. One is your policy, another one is your support factors from the education and other support factors, and the human resource, and then finance, and the market, and the customers. So all these things determine the success, because normally what we do in entrepreneurship, we simply go and collect the data from some of the startups and say that this is the reason for failure, this is the reason for success, but that is wrong, because success and failure of the startup is not exclusively depending upon the person. It is about the context. The context means what support he is getting from the incubator, how much of the government policy is of doing business. So all these things framework, we have done some kind of analysis. In that case, we have done thematic analysis. But what we did, whatever comes from the because we have done thematic analysis using the published research papers. It is basically a systematic review kind of thing. We put the themes based on that structure which is already identified. So we put the things, everything in the entrepreneurial ecosystem framework. We did not do any kind of new kind of framework. We simply try to put everything in the framework. So that means that I have done the theoretical or deductive or top-down approach there. So we can go for two kinds of bottom-up approach or top-down approach, inductive or deductive approach. So other one is the level at which the themes are identified. There are two levels themes are identified. One is semantic or explicit approach. Means you are in explicit approach, you are simply looking at the surface meanings. Suppose somebody is saying, I am very happy for being a participant of the training program. Okay, so happy, underline the word happy. I am very happy in being a participant. That means that this is happy is the word which indicates the what his satisfaction. Satisfaction he derived from the training program. That is a surface meaning. But sometimes what we do is that whole sentences we will analyze it. Not one. I am happy for participating in this program because it helped me to get rid of my office work for a particular period of time. So the thing is, if you read the second sentence, the impact is not the same because he is happy because he is getting rid of the official work for participating in the program. That means that it is not the effect of the training program. It is the effect of break from the routine official duty. So there you will go for if you read the third sentence, something will be there. So you have to look at the whole context and you have to understand the meaning with respect to other sentence. That is called a latent or interpretive or in-depth analysis of the semantic content. I can give you an example. I will show you one example which is the training program conducted in West Indies. I'll give an example. So from there, from the content, what you are getting it, you will be identifying the patterns, means the words which are more similar. I love working with the computers. I always get excited to learn the new programs. So these are the sentences which are actually showing somebody is more having an affinity towards computer, means somebody who likes the computer. So that is making 2 or 3 words like this, you will be identifying the pattern. That is from pattern, you will be identifying the themes there. So one example I can give you, content analysis revealed that a majority of the participants reporting being afraid when they are rappelling down the cliffs and running the river rapids. That means that somebody is traveling, walking in a bridge which is connecting two hills. Below that, there is a water flowing. Means there is a depth. When people are traveling through that bridge, when they are looking at down, they express fear. So the pattern is majority of the participants reported feeling fear when they are rappelled down the cliff. It's from the cliff when they are seeing down, they are feeling a fear. So the theme is fear. So the pattern is the sentence which is given in the write-up, the sentence told by the person, which is having a fear component there. You can see majority of the participants, like if you are asking the same another person, they may say that I always feel fear when I am walking in the narrow bridges. Okay, so that is a sentence of a person. You are underlining the word fear. So that is a pattern. Okay, then but underline the word fear because this is the pattern. Many times pattern means the same kind of sentence told by the, suppose if you are asking a question for 10 people, the same kind of sentence will come from the 5 people. So you are asking the question to 10 people, you got 50% people said that I feel fear when I am going in a bridge like this. So that is a pattern, means 5 times the same kind of sentences repeated. But from there you are identifying when the people are traveling, they face fear. Fear is the theme. Now if you want to construct a questionnaire, you have to select fear as a construct. From there you have to select some of the statements. Whenever I am traveling in the bridges, I feel uncomfortable. So second, they will say that whenever I think of traveling in the bridges, I feel uncomfortable or I feel fear. So there are the different kind of statements you are putting, that you are actually trying to measure the fear of the participants when they are traveling in the cliff or when they are traveling in the bridge. So this is where you have to do it. So from the questions you are asking it, somebody is giving you the answer. You are the sentence, I always feel fear when I am traveling in the bridges or when I am going to cliff. So I don't travel, I don't go for a trekking because I have a fear of cliffs. So there are two, 3 sentences will come. All these sentences are actually showing a pattern in the answer. So you are putting all these things together, and then from there you have to identify a theme. The theme is fear. So the theme will become the dimension of your construct in the later stages when you are developing a scale or when you are going for an index or whatever you are doing. So these are the steps in thematic analysis. One is define the research problem and question, decide on the sampling strategy, collect the data in a very systematic way, whether you go for a secondary data or you go for a primary data, collect the data in a very, very systematic way with reduce the bias and do it in a very controlled atmosphere and try to reduce the confronting variables. Everything you have to do it at this stage. Then transcription and translation of the verbal data by the judges. Judges means the people who are actually doing the thematic analysis, minimum of 2 required, and familiarizing yourself with the data. The transcription and translation is basically converting your data into writing form, because thematic analysis works only with the text. Whether you go for a physical or whether you go for a software based, you need a text. You have to convert the video, you have to convert the audio into the text form first in the local language. Again, you have to go for a translation there. Once you are doing it, then you have to, when you are doing the coding, you have to read the data, familiarize the data with yourself, and then generating initial codes and labels, and connecting the codes and the labels and searching for the themes and identifying the themes and review the themes and defining and naming the themes and identifying the relationship between the themes using the mind map, and finally you are writing the report. It is basically like identifying the construct from the data. From that particular construct will be measured in a later stage using the questionnaire or using some personal interviews, structured interviews, personal interviews. You can go for it. You can use this construct and you can identify the relationship between the different constructs. You can go for quantitative, like a hypothesis testing, prediction or explanation, everything in the later stages. But at the initial stage, you will stop at identifying the themes. In the scale development, we call it as the themes are the dimensions, different dimensions of the scale, and each and every dimension will have some indicators. So one example which I used to give in all training programs. So the Atari director wished to computerize the work environment of all the KVKs in the zone by providing computers to all the SMS individually. The purpose of this effort to improve the work efficiency of the SMS in performing the extension and other office tasks. Since the computerization is an expensive task, the director wishes to know how much of the computerization will be effective when it is done in full scale. So they don't, because it's a, you need a lot of money giving individual computers or laptop or mobile phone. Lot of investment is required, because any director or any manager, research manager or extension manager, they will be looking at it, how much it will be used. He wishes to know the factors which influence the computer relation by the SMS. The task is assigned to the SMS extension who is working in Atari. So the research question is, what are all the factors which influence the computer utilization behavior of the SMS in the KVK? So you have to decide the sampling strategy. How will you collect the data? Like you have to collect some of the open-ended interviews at the beginning, because here by looking at it, what are the factors which influence the computer utilization of the SMS in the KVK? This is one research question. But please remember, the director wishes to know how much of the computers will be used in a later stage. So that means that you are going into a kind of explanation and prediction research goal. So you are going, you have to do some, ultimately you have to do the quantitative analysis. But before doing it, you can go for a qualitative analysis to understand what are the different factors which influence the computer utilization behavior of the SMS when it is given in office or at the home. Because home computer experience also we can take into account. Because in all KVKs, I am not sure now everybody has a personal computer, but some people may not be having computer, and those people may be using computer at their home. Their experience can be utilized, taken for the research work. So you can go for a, based on research question, you can go for a focus group discussions, or you can go for a telephonic interview at the beginning. So you can develop some kind of basic questions like, do you have a computer at home? How frequently you will be using the computer at home or office? So what are the software you will be using you will be using it, how frequently you will be using those softwares, and why you are using those software, whether it is trying to match the job work profile of you, the job task which is given to you, are you using this for using it like that. You will be asking so many questions. From there, you ask the same questions to your people, 20-30 people, then you will identify what are the factors which are coming repeatedly in these answers using thematic analysis. Then you either go for in-depth interviews or telephone interviews, audio, video clippings, blog, social media, whatever. But in this work, you can go for a telephone interview or focus group discussions, provided you are able to assemble all the people here, or you have to go for online focus groups, which is ineffective because we are not very good in doing online focus groups. But we are very good in doing the telephonic interviews. That can be done at the beginning, at the initial stage. There you can go for the thematic analysis. So at the end of all the data, you will be recording the data question wise. Question number 1, the respondent's answer of the respondent number 1, you have to write everything. Answer of the respondent number 2, answer of the respondent number 3, like that. Each question wise, you will be writing the answer there. That is called, once you write all the answers from your telephone interview, you are translating into, you are transcribing into a text form. Suppose if you are collecting data from a local language, you have to convert this into English language. Otherwise, we cannot go for the analysis there. Suppose if you are going for a manual thematic analysis, even in local language also you can do that. There is no issue at all for you. Then once you are converting and writing into in a text form, that is called a data corpus. All the sheets which are having the answers of the participants, that is called a data corpus. So then the data corpus, I already told you, transcription and the translation of the verbal data, I already explained in the previous case. Transcription means converting from audio and video recorded in in-depth interviews or telephone program or political speeches, which has to come into the written form in the same language. Okay, so suppose if it is taken in the English language, Hindi language, you can translate to English. So you have to follow orthographic transcription, taking into account of all the verbal and non-verbal utterances. Suppose you are asking a question, somebody is giving a continuous flow answer. Somebody will be telling, okay, what is your annual income? They will, this is a very embarrassing question. Okay, how much of the income you got it from your last crop? This is also a very embarrassing question. Sometimes you can say that how much of yield you got in the last year. So he will tell the exact yield. Okay, what was the price you sold? Suddenly they will be getting some kind of conscious. They will be keeping some time and they will say, I got for 20 rupees. So that means that this person is not giving the correct data. Okay, so you have to translate, you have to put it that the gap was there in between. Somebody might have told exactly, suppose if there is a gap, if they are not doing, there are several reasons. One is he might have forgotten it, or sometimes he don't want to tell. But you have to see that how much length of the gap and what kind of answers which are following later stages, because this is what we say that context. Based on that, you can interpret that this person is deliberately suppressing some information. So that means that since that is your, as a person who is doing the coding, your perspective, the same perspective is coming to the another coder. So that means that you both are doing in the same way. So like that you can, because it's a very complex process, I'm giving only small examples here. And you can see how you will be doing translation, verbatim in the original version, and then the concepts and categories, core categories you are doing it. Okay, you are identifying. Here you can see they are translating it, and again you are identifying coding and other categories you are doing at the beginning itself. Then English version, and two English version mean two people are doing it. And you are comparing both the versions received from the coders, and you have to compare whether the coders are doing in a proper way. If it is not matching, you have to give it to the third coder, because there must be similarity in the what are the codes they identified, what are the concepts they identified. Then you translate it to the original version. This is the way you have to do it at the translation level. So this is one verbatim which I have given you right, because it's almost I have to finish within 15 minutes, but you can just read it. It's a good idea to have a computer in my desk. I would love to use it. Though I have a laptop at my home, my son always uses it and I hardly get time to work with it. If it is in my laptop, in my desk, so I can try whatever I get whenever I get free time and whenever I explore the new applications. This is the sentence they told. That means it's a good idea to have a computer in my desk. That means that they want computer, they like the computer. And some people will say that they will be having anxiety. So what else I will do? I will be able to do everything manually. Why I need a computer? I can make a very good report simply by using my handwriting is good. Or somebody will type it and they will do it. Why I need a computer? I don't need it. It will be a useless thing. Somebody will be giving a negative remark. Suppose if you are making a negative remark about the computer, if you read the another sentence what that person told, you can identify that person is having a computer anxiety with him. So you can read the sentences and based on that you can make an interpretation there. You can identify the codes and you can familiarize yourself with the data once you are doing it there. I will show you some example in between there. This is the different steps which I am explaining. Then you have to create the initial codes. You can see here. Civility is one of the construct which is identified by this person. So the example from where he brought the civility theme is, this is the answer that person got from his interview. I think we should follow laws and rules. And two most important responsibility I think we have in this world is to provide to our families and learn and follow every rule that has ever been created. That means that the person is saying whatever law is done, we have to follow it, and we also should have tell to our family to follow it. That is our duty. So that person told like this, from this particular sentence, we have created a concept called civility. When you create a concept based on the repeated words like this, you have to give a definition. Civility is that treating other person respectfully, regardless of whatever or not one agrees with their viewpoints, being willing to listen to other point of view, avoiding hostile, abusive, emotional and illogical statement. This is the definition of the construct which you have created from the sentences told by the person for a specific question. Not single person. It has to be there in 6-7 places. Then only we can consider this as a pattern, and we are coming to a label. We are giving a label to it. It's called civility. And you can see here the same sentence which I was using earlier, the verbatim. It's a good idea to have a computer in my desk and I would love to use it. Here you can see initial quotes with the data extract indicated in the parenthesis. This is a quotes. Good idea means computer acceptance. Good idea, I love means there are two quotes are there. Good idea and love, both are referring to the theme called computer acceptance. And I have a laptop at my home, availability of the computer at home. I hardly get time to work with it. Means the intention to use the computer, but it is not possible. If it is in my disk, I can try whatever I get, whenever I get free time and explore the new application. Means that he is trying for, he has an motivation to explore the new application. This is called motivation here. And when I was in Manage last month, I learned how Facebook and Twitter can be used to create the farmers group and exchange information on new agricultural technologies. This sentence clearly indicates the computer self-efficacy. Means he attended a training program and he learned how to use this. That means that he is confident of using this computer. You can use either the word computer skill or computer self-efficacy. Though I am not good in managing Facebook, I can get help from my colleagues who has an active Facebook account. So this sentence says he will be getting the help from the colleague when he is not understanding. That is means collegial support in an organization, which is a part of the organizational support. Actually, I have not written here, but you can write whatever. These things are codes. From the code, you will be identifying the themes here. Here. And what to code or label. Sorry, this is not the theme. The computer acceptance, availability of the computer at home, these are all labels. These are all not themes. You have to integrate this label, then only you'll be getting the themes. So you can see what to code or what to label. Repeated, the same words are repeated in several places. Some words which will surprise you, but repeatedly the words are coming there. That is a newness of the words. Some new constructs will come. Interview explicitly state, which this is very, very important for me. Means that you have to select as a code. Then you have read something similar in previous papers. So like when you are reading the theory, when you are going for your literature review, you got some of the constructs, but from the data which you have generated from telephone interviews also, similar kind of constructs are coming, you have to underline there. So it reminds you of a theory or concept, you have to underline it. You have to underline it here in the verbatim. I have given in different colors. You have to underline this when you are doing the manually. And other points, a code for many potential themes or patterns are possible, and you have to stay unbiased, and you have to extract the code which is with the context. Please remember, the code has to be extracted based on the context. That means that you have to read the 3-4 sentences together. Then from there, you have to identify the appropriate code. And how to identify the theme? Repetitions, something is repeated again and again in the sentences. Indigenous typologies or categories, metaphors and analogies, transitions, similarities and differences, linguistic connectors, missing data, and theory-related material. These are the different ways to identify the themes. You can do, there's what is metaphor and analogy, which I am not going to explain it. And once you are identifying the code, whatever you underlined, which is a code, from the code, you are given a label. From the label, you have to put the labels together and you have to identify the theme. Theme is a coherent and meaningful pattern in the verbatim, and it involves sorting of the different codes and the labels identified in the previous step, the potential themes. You have to create a thematic map using the theme piles. So what you do is, first of all, you have to underline the words which are surprising you, which are repeated, and which are very new, the terminal terms which are very new, they are actually codes. So from the codes, what these codes reflect, because you have to give a label. Label means label will have 2 or 3 codes together at the same time. And you have to put all the labels and codes together. You have to pull the similar things together. After reading all this, suppose I am saying one question was asked. 20 people have given answers. You read all the 20 answers. You underline the codes. Based on the codes, you identify the labels, and you put both the codes and labels together, and you put the things in a similar things you have to put. That is a card piling exercise. You can do it. And whatever the similar codes or similar labels are coming there, you have to give a name for this particular, that is called theme. So that you will be using the mind map method. The mind map you are getting it through your NVO software, because this is the final output of the NVO software. Initially, you will be inputting all your verbatims together. From the verbatim, you will identify what all the repeated words are coming in NVO. So whenever the repeated words are coming, you have to look at the sentence where the repeated the words are selected. Some sentences may not be the right context for you. You have to remove those things. From those repeated words, this NVO software construct the mind map. Sometimes you have to specify how to construct the mind map, but otherwise it is most of the time it constructs automatically. So this is the mind map you can see in NVO software. Change, down east, policy, tourism, and community, economy, natural, and family history, and nearest commerce. I don't know. I just used it to show what is exactly the mind map. I am not explaining it. You can just, I will show you, I will share the video, which whatever I am going to give the example, which I will share the video. And in thematic analysis, sometimes you may be getting a new concepts there. So one is indigenous concepts. So in West Indies, there was a training program conducted. After that, they used the verbatims for collect open-ended questions for collecting the effectiveness of the training program. So from there, they were all getting a word, liming. So is coming, but liming is something which is related to soil science. Why it is coming to training program, they don't understand. So what exactly the meaning of liming is? In West Indies, there is a culture. What they do is when they are stressed, when they are doing some kind of work, lot of family commitments and everything, you go for LTC, no? So like that, they will go for some pleasure trips. So which is a breaking from the work or breaking from the routine family life. they go for some pleasure trip. So that pleasure trip is called liming. Okay, but when such sentences are coming, like when they are collecting the data about the training effectiveness, this training was very effective. I really liked. I was very happy after a very long time because I was very much overloaded with work. So the effect of liming here is people consider the training program as a break from the routine work, so that it gives pleasure to them to participate in the training, so that they are away from their grueling office work, or they are away from their some stressful family kind of thing. So they consider training as a effect of the training is a liming, because they got some pleasure trip for the training program. But this is an indigenous concept which is more specific to the particular culture. But we cannot say that the training is ineffective only because somebody said it is liming, because you have to see in the context. But this is the only one construct which you got it from the effectiveness of the training program. There are other constructs. When you compare this liming with other constructs, that means the training was very effective in a very holistic way, not only in terms of the knowledge test, not only in the terms of the perception about the effectiveness of the training program, lodging provider and whatever being provided. There is something has happened which is unwanted from the trainer's perspective, but really it is a good point. From next time onwards, the evaluator, training evaluator has put liming as one of the construct in training effectiveness evaluation. So that's an indigenous construct put into the training evaluation based on his experience in the previous data collection. Second one is analyst construct concepts. This guy standing is a person who are doing the labor research in United Kingdom in the 2010s. So when he is classifying the laborers, he created a new kind of classification of the labor called precariat. Precariat is a person who is not having a permanent job, or there is no assurance of getting the permanent job. Like the people know in India, when people are contract laborers are going for daily wages, like they will be standing in a group, like in shipyard. Morning they will go there, they will be waiting there, and these people names will be called. Rest of the people will go. The evening, next day also they will be coming. Means these people don't have a permanent job and they don't have any assurance of getting. So there is a class of labor which guy standing as based on his analysis of the data collected in previous, he invented a new class of labor who is precariat. So based on the thematic analysis, he created a new kind of concept which is referring to some kind of laborers. And there are some sensitizing concepts will be there. Invite query into what they mean to the people in different settings. Food security, which may be different from the policymaker's perspective as well as the beneficiary's perspective. Wealth, what you are getting out of that is also having a different kind of perspective will be there. Leadership. So our leadership theories will tell something, but the leadership in the village is only the informal leadership. So we use social network analysis to identify it. So these are the different kind of sensitizing concept. We'll have a multiple perceptions there. So these kind of concepts will be coming in the thematic analysis. And another some examples which I am giving indigenous concept is Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. This is a sociology concept which is an indigenous concept. Urban folk continuum given by the Redfield is also indigenous concept. And it's a sacred secular continuum given by Von Weisse and Beckers. And analyst constructed typologies are adopter categories like innovator, early majority, late majority. These are all coming under the Rogers based on this analysis of data, and he classified the people into different adopter categories. And another one is the people who visit the museum. They classified the commuters, the nomad, the cafeteria type, and the VIP. So this is one of the research which has classified the people into different kind of construct categories. So this is the beauty of thematic analysis. You are actually identifying a new construct, new way of looking at the existing phenomenon. Means it's a kind of like in entomology, people say, I identified a new pest. I recorded it, I already reported, I classified. So that means that people are very happy when they release the new variety, when they identify a new pest. Just like you are identifying a new construct out of your research work, that is also like a new pest you identified. Means which is going to be used in the future. So this is the beauty of the thematic analysis, which will be getting it out of it. And finally, when you are identifying the themes, you have to review the theme. based on certain criteria, internal homogeneity and external homogeneity, and you have to review the thematic map. Means you have to identify how the themes were extracted, and you have to review what are the names of the themes. Every theme, when you are extracting, you have to give a definition. Like I said about the civility example, you have to give a definition of the theme, and finally you have defined it properly. Also, you have to review it at the final stage of the thematic analysis. And like I said, I already told defining and the naming of the themes, and you have to create the thematic map. So the applications of the thematic analysis, not only in impact assessment, in several other cases, identification of the research themes in the new research area, and quantifying the impact indicators. Like I said, there may be some of the indicators which may be emerging out of your research. Like I said about this liming concept in case of the training program, as well as the precariat labor group, because thematic analysis will come out with a new kind of a different impact indicator, and again construct conceptualization in new ways, like I said in qualitative analysis, and the policy analysis also you can use the thematic analysis. Extension strategy development from the successful interventions. So you can make study of the previous work. From there, you can identify the key elements which define the success of the previous program. So you can, when you are creating a new intervention program, you make sure that those elements which contributed to the success of the previous intervention are retained in this program as well. So this is also another application of thematic analysis. So with this, I will close my presentation, and I think it's a more of a theoretical kind of thing. And now I'm ready for the questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Participants, the session is now open for questions. You can unmute yourself and ask.
Okay. Yeah. Good evening, sir. Yeah. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. I think this is one of my sessions that I enjoyed so much. What exactly I want to know first is I want to know the quantity of team you might be required for a qualitative survey. Like you have a focus group discussion. How many people is required?
So are you saying the sample size or?
Yes, exactly, the sample size for the qualitative.
Okay, sample size especially in the thematic analysis, we cannot have directly any criteria for the sample size. Though one of my blog paper, we compiled the recommended sample size for different qualitative studies. It is also there in the good practices manual. That is taken based on some of the research work which are conducted exclusively for determining the saturation point, because the sample size depends upon the saturation point. Saturation point is one where you are asking the same questions to 10 people or 15 people. At one particular level, the answers will be repeated. Same kind of answers will be coming. That is called a saturation point. Based on the saturation point, some research studies have recommended that we can go for, especially thematic analysis, the sample size, minimum sample size is 30. But it depends upon the type of research